Okay, we're starting a new sefer, a new book together in our Musar section of our learning. And it is a fascinating work that will put a lot of things into perspective in the times that we are living in. It was written over 20 years ago, about 24, 23 years ago when 9/11 took place, to the great shock of the entire world that you could have a nation and you could have a people of Arabs that came along and they masterminded one of the most gruesome terrorist attacks that the world has ever seen before, crashing two planes into the Twin Towers with a total disregard and respect for humanity and human life, killing thousands of people and impairing and damaging and changing the lives of all of the thousands and thousands of people that were connected to the fathers, to the mothers, to the brothers, to the sisters, to the sons, the daughters, the husbands and the wives that were there in those Twin Towers when they fell. Yishmael, the nation of Yishmael, the Arabs came along and they did such a horrific, terrible thing. So there's one of the Rosh Yeshivas of Tells in Cleveland. His name is Aaron Dovid Goldberg. When he saw this take place, he was in shock. And he decided that he was going to do an in-depth analysis of the nation of Yishmael, who we will call the modern-day Arabs, the terrorists that are coming along and doing these things, which we find October 7th, and bus bombings and suicide killings and all the different things that take place. And he went through the Torah and through Chazal, through our sages and Midrashim and Gemaras and the Rishonim and the Mefarshim and the commentators to give us a clear picture of why this exile of Yishmael is something that is so difficult and so painful and continues to exist throughout the millennia and the generations. He wrote a book called Dodi, Dofek. The voice of my beloved is knocking, is banging, and he speaks over here very clearly, puts so much into perspective. We can understand what's going on in the world today as well about the nation of Yishmael, which again are these parshas that we have in the Torah. Also, Avraham was married to Sarah for many years, did not have children. She gives Avraham a maidservant, Hagar, who is an Ish Mitzris, who is a Egyptian woman, and they have a child, and that child's name is Yishmael. And Yishmael becomes the prototype of the Arab people, as we are going to see. And he writes like this: Golas Yishmael v'arba malchus. There's the Golas, the exile of Yishmael, and the four kingdoms of the world, as we shall see. HaMaharal b'ner mitzvah, the Maharal writes, Hirich levayar tam shelo husker malchus Yishmael b'cheshbon ha'arba malchus b'sefer Daniel. One of the books of the prophets is Daniel, and he speaks over there about the four different kingdoms that will rise up against the Jewish people and will end up exiling us in each one of those generations. One is Bavel, which is the Bavel, Babylonia, which came and exiled us from Jerusalem and Israel the first time. Then you have Paras, which is Persia, which is the times of the Purim story. Then you have Malchus Yavan, you have the Greeks who did their own damage and exiles of the Jewish people, and then Malchus Edom, which are the Romans who eventually destroyed the second Beis HaMikdash, the second temple, and sent us into exile, which has lasted for nearly 2,000 years already. The thing is that Yishmael, who clearly is a leading enemy and arch nemesis of the Jewish people, is never mentioned in this list. And the Maharal wants to know, why should that be? V'yesh b'nei adam shoylim, there are people that ask, V'eichen remez malchus Yishmael shemalchus rabsa tekiva, where do you find the kingdom of Yishmael hinted to, which is clearly a very great and strong kingdom? Uchuvas sheilezoi zois mashaloi zocha malchus Yishmael, and the answer of why we don't find the kingdom of Yishmael mentioned in any of these lists Ki lo yechashev hakosav racha malchus shekiblu malchus kedishin elyonim. Because the list that Daniel brings of these 4 kingdoms only lists those kingdoms and those nations which receive their malchus, their monarchy, when they glean the koyach, the power, from Kedishin Oyonim, from the upper holy forces of the Jewish people, as we will see. Sheyarshu Malchus Yisrael v'koycham, they inherit the kingdom and the monarchy of the Jewish people and their powers. V'em elu dalar malchus, those are the 4 kingdoms that have risen up against us. He's going to explain much more in depth. V'im lo shebitu malchus Yisrael lo yigi leva malchus. If it wouldn't be for the fact that the Jewish people lost their stake and their claim in their own glory and their own power, and they were mevatel, they nullified their own personal malchus, their kingdom, so then the other nations would not be able to reach the malchus, their own monarchy and rulership over us. Aval malchus Yishmael, but the kingdom of Yishmael, lo yarash koichad min malchus Yisrael, they do not receive their strength from the weakness of the Jewish people not behaving the way they were supposed to and losing our malchus, losing our kingdom. Because Yishmael is different than every other kingdom in the world. They are given and granted their own strength and their own power and their might by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. They stand on their own. Every other malchus, as we are about to see, only exists because they steal almost, and they inherit the strong powers of monarchy from the Jewish people. Yishmael has power in and of himself. Bishul Shaya Mizer Avram, because Yishmael is the offspring of Avram Avinu. Vashem Yisbarach Aman, Hashem said in the Parsha, Uli Yishmael Shamatich, I heard you about Yishmael. Avram Avinu was in pain that he had to send Yishmael out of the house. He was in pain that Yishmael was not going to be the one that's going to be the descendant, the true descendant of Avram. And he said, Halavai, I wish that I could do something with Yishmael. And Hashem said, I heard you, Avram. Don't worry. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Yishmael power and strength and might, all on his own. He stands by himself. He doesn't need any help from the Jewish people. If the Jewish people will weaken, he's going to get strength. No, it doesn't work like that. Yishmael on his own was filled up. He was emboldened, and he was given this power that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving to him. And that's the reason why that they're not mentioned in the list of the 4 kings in Daniel. Rather, those 4 kingdoms are the ones that receive, they inherit their power and their strength from the Jewish people. And at the end, the Jewish people, once they begin to work on themselves, and once they begin to do tshuva, and they rise to the challenge, and they become the glorious nation of the Jewish people once again, then they will take over, and they will retake and capture the powers for themselves. The Pachad Yitzchak, who was Rav Hutner, one of the great Rosh Yeshivas of America years ago, he writes, Shekasa b'bir divrei Maharal, to explain the words of the Maharal, he says like this: Matzina b'divrei Chachamim, we find in the words of the Chachamim of our sages, Shebein Yaakov ve'Esav miskayim yachas shel keshazeh kam zen loifa. Now, there is another child that's in the lineage of the Jewish people that is a thorn in the side of our nation, but they exist in a different way. So Yishmael is the son of Avraham Avinu, and he stands on his own. But remember, there's Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov is the progenitor of all of Klal Yisrael, of the Jewish people. He has the 12 tribes, which is who we are all living from, that lineage. But he also had a son named Esav. Yitzchak had a son named Esav, and Esav is a problem. says, but over there we have a concept that says, Keshezekam, when this one is elevated, Zen Neufel, the other one falls down. Which means when the Jewish people are on top, when we are strong and doing what we're supposed to be doing, behaving like Klal Yisrael, so then Esav has no power. But when the Jewish people fall and we fail our mission in this world and we get entangled in all the different webs of things in this world and we go down, so then the Esav, they will end up rising up and we go to the bottom. And now Esav becomes, in history, becomes the Roman people. And the Gemara says, if somebody will tell you that Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, which obviously belongs to the Jews, and Rome, which belongs to Esav, they're both strong and powerful. Sheshtei and Benuyos, they're both built and existing. Ishtei and Horowitz, or they're both destroyed. Al Tamin, do not believe that person. It doesn't work like that. You can't have two superpowers, or both of them are being destroyed. It's one or the other. But if somebody tells you, one of them is built, and the other one is destroyed, Tamin, then you should believe them. Why should you believe them? Because that's the spiritual nature and the tension that exists between Klal Yisrael and the other nations of the world. When we are doing what we're supposed to, when we're elevated and we're glorious and we're fulfilling our purpose in this world, we're on top, and the nations that wanted to get us, they're on the bottom, they don't have any strength. But when we switch and we go to the lowliness of the Jewish people, automatically the other nation inherits our strength and they go to the top. Ve'ilu b'nogeya liYishmael, but when it comes to Yishmael, the offspring of Avram Avinu, it doesn't say anywhere that it works when the Jewish people are on top, Yishmael's on the bottom. And when the Jewish people are on the bottom, Yishmael's on the top. Doesn't work. Yishmael does not exist on the destruction of the Jewish people. Yishmael is going to exist on his own volition. And that's what a lot of this Sefer is going to deal with. Why is it that Yishmael has so much power? Why do they have so much strength? They have survived thousands of years of Jewish history, and they rear their ugly head everywhere that we go in this world. And as we can see, they're populating the entire universe at this point. Why is that? If they're so negative and they're such an enemy, why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu give them these powers? That's going to be a large part of this Sefer, and we're going to learn little by little so we have a much deeper understanding of what is going on and what we could do to possibly combat, Be'ezus Hashem, the evil forces of Yishmael in this world. Okay, we'll continue next time.